It has never been more important to trust your intuition, so welcome to the rise of the reluctant psychic. Hello, I'm your host Clare Cusack, and today we're diving into an important topic that so many of us grapple with, which is distinguishing between true intuitive insights and the mind's noise. You know, that inner chatter that can sometimes drown out your gut feelings or intuitive nudges. We're going to be asking, is intuition the same as psychic ability, or is there a difference? And how do you know when what you're sensing is genuinely intuitive and when it's just wishful thinking or fear-based thoughts getting in the way? Now, in today's episode, we're going to explore these questions and more as we dig into the process of developing your intuition. We'll also cover how to deal with psychic impressions that can sometimes feel overwhelming. So let's dive straight in with Clare's quickfire round with the lovely Julie Rains, who'll be asking the all-important questions to get to the heart of the issue today.
Okay, so this is one of my favourite questions. How can someone differentiate between intuition and just wishful thinking?
My gut is telling me to
do the lottery.
To do the lottery, eat this ice cream. Like, my intuition is telling me to book that holiday. Wishful thinking can lead us astray because we want to believe that that's our intuition to take certain action. I think the only way really to really know ourselves and know the difference between a wishful thinking and an intuition is to spend time cultivating a deep sense of stillness within us and a deep sense of neutrality, so that when things pop into our mind, we can tell the difference between a gentle knowing and something that's ego-based. Wishful thinking suggests that we want something, so it comes from an ego place. We have to strip all of that back, and we won't necessarily know the difference until we start doing the inner work. We find a place of stillness and we learn to develop our discernment.
So how, again, as well, another question is, people ask all the time, how do you also differentiate between an intuition and a fear-based thought?
Again, we have to really get to know ourselves and know our own mind, and that involves a process of taking time to consciously slow things down. We live in such a fast-paced world, such a fast-paced environment. Our days are busy and we're packed. We've got to take those moments to create space within us so that when we enter into a situation or a scenario, we can have a pause and feel into whether something is right for us or not. We have to take those moments to find space and stillness. And I recommend to people who are beginning their journey, or they have a certain degree of intuition but they want to develop it, is taking moments, even if it's 5-10 minutes a day, to meditate, to find a place of stillness, to clear the mind so that something comes in, you can see if it's coming from a fear place. Is it coming from an ego place? Is it coming from a wishful place? Or is it just a deep, calm, knowing place? And I like to use the example with this. I used to live by a river, and occasionally it would flood the car park, and I could be worried about, is it going to flood? Is it going to flood? And I'd move the car and I'd be worrying about it. And every time I moved the car out of a fear that something might happen, nothing happened. One day I was watching television and I just got this knowing, I need to move the car. So I turned to my partner and I was like, I just need to move the car. They looked at me and were like, okay. So I got up, moved the car out the car park, got up the next day and the car park had flooded. And it taught me that if I trust that when I need to know something, it will come into my mind and it will be easy, and it will just be a full body knowing that I just need to do this. It was very relaxed. I barely even thought about why I was doing it. As we fine-tune our ability to listen, we realise that a knowing can be insistent and kind of gentle, but not earth-shatteringly loud. In knowings and intuitions, we imagine, if we think of it as psychic, we imagine that the thunder and lightning happens, or the clouds part, and the sun comes out, and we have this huge, great big,
the parting of the sea.
Angels start singing, and we know that I'm getting a message. But actually, it's so much more subtle than that. It's a simple thought that if we listen to, those thoughts become more part of our day-to-day life, where we get these gentle intuitions, and they can come from where? They come from our higher selves. They may come from guides. They can come from places of where there's more wisdom than we have available to us in that moment. As a part of us that has a bird's eye perspective on, well, if we go in this direction, take this journey, make this phone call, take this job, it's going to end. We're going in the right direction. And if we do something else, then it's, we're going to have experiences that are taking us off our path.
In essence, would we be saying that it's almost particularly when you're beginning to understand, it's like a little fluttering that just floats in, as you say, watching the TV, go move the car, doing the ironing. You really need to do, if you do ironing, you need to do X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
So moving forward from that, what is the difference then between psychic ability and intuition, or are they really the same thing?
They're the same thing. I like to use the word psychic as I say an umbrella term, and intuition is part of what that umbrella term encapsulates, and it's the part that sits within us that we can fine tune and utilize, not just in the big moments in life, but from day to day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. We can use our intuition for every aspect of our lives as we learn to fine tune it and use it to our advantage.
And it is speaking from personal experience, it is a great tool to have, particularly in business. And I've found that with our business, that the times I haven't listened, how many times I've said to you, I shouldn't have done that.
And that's, it's interesting you say that, because even for a seasoned person who uses their intuition,
yes,
we're still human, and we still question it, and we don't always trust it, because the logic, and especially in business, the logic and what seems sensible, what seems right, or what we think we should do can get in the way. And it's a choice that we make, whether we listen to it or not.
And in a digital world, I really feel equally as valuable as data and an algorithm.
Yes.
Because they don't always get it. I often I look at data, but I've learned, listen to that intuition, gut, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, so we can look at, that's a good point. And I think it's particularly in the digital world, and particularly now with how Instagram and Facebook and all the social media platforms curate our content to what we already believe.
Yes.
So we're not encouraged to do the mental gymnastics, to think about situations from different perspectives. And I think asking about what is new intuition, I think intuition is also the capacity to have the empathy to look at something from all different perspectives, and then use our intuition and our discernment to decide what's true, because we're told this is true. We're presented with facts and truth. And actually, maybe 5 years ago, people talked about fake news, they were laughed at. Now we realise that a lot of what we see is curated. There's often agendas, be it fiscal and monetary agendas, to how things are presented to us, and we're suggested and encouraged to make certain choices, but it's not for our interest, it's for somebody else's agenda. And I think it's really important that we begin to have those mental gymnastics where we see data, information, news, things that come into our awareness. And the more we can take those moments of stillness and quiet and sit and develop a spaciousness in ourselves, the more we can use our then discernment to say, does this feel true?
Yes, and I think as well with the algorithms and the digital world, it's very good, particularly social media platforms, at smothering intellectual curiosity, which is no different, I don't feel, than the intuition that we use and being a reluctant psychic. It's all part of the same pathway.
Yes.
And I think it's very important to explore that intellectual side of being a reluctant psychic. So moving from that point, what would you say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by psychic impressions or sensations? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because as you begin to open up, some people open up very naturally. They are very open, and they come into this completely overwhelmed with impressions, and they're very sensitive. And it can be hard when you are so sensitive to know what's yours and what isn't.
Yeah.
So if you're very sensitive and you start feeling agitated, or you start feeling fearful, or you start feeling upset. Sometimes when someone's very sensitive, they're not feeling even their own feelings. They're picking up on someone who's about to phone them, who's upset or agitated or angry, but they don't realize that it's not their stuff. So we can start feeling things and we think, well, hang on, I was all right a minute ago, now I'm feeling really upset. But I don't know why I'm upset. That's why again, it's so important to create that spaciousness, maybe even in a daily practice where we create some spaciousness. So when we start feeling things, we can discern, is this my feeling, or am I picking up on someone who I care about, and I'm linking with them, and unconsciously I'm feeling their feelings, I'm feeling their fear, I'm feeling their concern. And then you can start to build mechanisms within yourself to navigate that. But what you don't want to do is to be completely flooded by it, which can happen, and it happens to a lot of people. So on the one hand, they may be completely overwhelmed, and if they don't know how to deal with it, that's where the reluctant psychic comes in. I don't want this, I don't want all this information, and then you push it away and you shut the door entirely. And when you shut the door entirely, you're missing out on all the good things about being intuitive too.
So would you say on that point, can you turn off psychic ability if it becomes too much for you to handle?
I would say yes, you can. And I would attest to my journey where I did my very best to shut it down, especially because it happened for me from a very early age. I had no concept, no context, no understanding for it, no family members to explain it to me, no one to validate what I was experiencing. And as a child, when you're psychic and you pick up on things, your parents don't necessarily want you knowing. I mean, I've had clients come to see me and they said, they would say to the parents, but you're going to get a divorce. And the parents are like, don't be so ridiculous, everything's fine, only later for them to have a divorce. But in the meantime, this person who's very sensitive, this child who's picked up on that, they could sense that was coming, they're gaslit into doubting that they're right. And that's where the dissonance comes, and then the confusion comes. And if you are very intuitive or psychic as a child, then it's not embraced. People don't want to think that particularly parents.
So if it is possible to turn it off,
right,
which I actually think you can, because in my own experience of this, and in opposite to you, I grew up in a family where it was just very normal.
Yeah.
There was a great acceptance because I had a grandfather who used it in spades.
Yeah.
I was lucky to have that space, but there have been periods in my life when I needed to turn it off, and all I used to say is, no offense, I need to take a break. And I physically always said that out loud. I just speak it, use it, understand it. So I do feel that you can step back, because my worst experience were always shopping.
Right.
Learning how to cope with the shopping experience. And as you were saying, you can feel and you walk into, I don't know, a supermarket, perfectly all right. I mean, I have to say, totally embrace online food shopping. And I'd be walking around and you'd have a gamut of that, nothing to do with you, but you'd come out feeling absolutely
wrung out,
shattered. And I learned that I had to say, no, thank you. Close it off. I always put myself in an egg and I go do the shopping. But nowadays, thank goodness, we've got online. So I don't even, have to experience that. So
that's really interesting, because I think that speaks exactly to the reluctant psychic, right? So we have someone who doesn't really understand. Like, I didn't understand what was happening. You have to know what's happening to be able to switch it off.
You do.
That's the key.
That is the key.
Yeah.
Whereas I thought I was perfectly normal because it was normalised. It wasn't until you go into the wider world, you go to school and you think, oh, I better shut up.
So you had the experience of coming at it knowing that it was happening, and therefore knowing that you had a choice.
Yes.
I and a lot of the listeners who are reluctant, meaning they have no real understanding of just what this is, what's going on, and actually how much it's affecting them. So why is it that my friends could be perfectly okay after a day at school and I'd feel completely frazzled? Because I was so overstimulated and I didn't realise. So thank you. That's really interesting as a point. And I think the listeners this helps clarify why it's important, even if you don't want to think of yourself as break fingers psychic, actually embracing the fact that you're very intuitive, let's say, and it could be affecting you in many different ways that you don't realize. Getting control of it, being able to close down, being able to choose when to open up can be liberating.
And I think that neatly brings us into, so it really can, a reluctance to embrace your psychic ability does affect someone's personal growth and or relationships.
Yes, definitely. If you don't realize what's going on, you can't live your life to your full potential. Once you realize that you can, I can pick up on things and I can use that data that comes in, those intuitions, those knowings can be useful in my life, and I can close it down. And just because I can pick up on things, speaking personally, if I'm around people who are new to me and they think I'm psychic, they're worried that I'm picking thoughts out of their head. And I can assure you, most of the time I'm just thinking about what I'm going to have for tea. Like it's too much information.
Like now we're thinking about we're going to eat a load of brie.
Yes, to lunch. Exactly. I think so there's the perceptions we have of ourselves and what psychic means and how we're reluctant because I don't want to be psychic. That sounds weird. And also it's how other people then think of us if we were to be psychic. We're worried that what other people will think, because people are worried that we are using that to pluck information out of them. And I can assure you that I work with it in a way that it's invitation only. So if someone invites me in, then I will look. But it's way too much information to be looking at everyone all the time. It's just, you just can't do it. You have to learn to close down and have a quality of life whereby you live day to day in a way that's manageable. Thanks, Judy, so much for coming in today. Thank you so much for the chat.
You're very welcome.
And see you again, I hope.
It was great fun.
Yeah, thank you. That's it for today's episode of The Rise of the Reluctant Psychic. If something resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Tag me on Instagram at Clare Cusack _ The Life Healer, and let's keep the conversation going. Want to go deeper? Get exclusive content, bonus episodes, and guided meditations over on Patreon at patreon.com/Clare Cusack. And if you want to know what are the 5 signs that the universe is trying to wake you up, then head over to my website www.clarecusack.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review. It really helps more people find the show. Until next time, trust yourself, trust your path, and keep rising, one reluctant psychic at a time.